For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard, we will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30-odd minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it, but only by sheer accident.
Way! Welcome to 30-odd minutes. I'm Jeff Belanger. It is awesome to be with you. This is the 30 greatest minutes of television ever, and you are very strange for watching it, but we still love you and respect you in the morning. Thanks so much. Okay, we have a great show in store for you tonight, as we always do, because we try very hard at this. Often we fail, but we try, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
We try. If you're watching the show live at 30oddminutes.com, jump in the chat room because Sarah's there with Oddbot 3000. Rob is sick. Rob, we hope you feel better. He's probably sneezing all over his TV right now. Jump in the chat room. You can interact with us, ask questions of the show, of our guest, and just have a general good time with other people just like you. And you can send us emails, info@30oddminutes.com. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook, interact with us in all kinds of ways. And we got some emails this week. Sarah, what did they say?
All right. It says, hello, my name is David Walker. Hi, David. I live in the northeast of England in a small seaside town called Redcar. Just wanted to say the show is great. Love the humor and the fun. Your show is one of my must-listen-to list. I usually listen when I'm walking my dog on the beach. Keep up the great work, and we need more one-question interviews. Well, fancy that. Ask and you shall receive.
More one-question interviews. We can do that. We happen to have a brand new one-question interview. Roll it.
One question interview.
We're here with Troy Taylor, author of more than 70 paranormal books. Troy, this is your one question interview. After how many dates do you tell a chick that you're a ghost hunter?
Never. I don't think I ever bring it up. Just why not? Why bother at all? Let her find out for herself.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks, Troy. I was at a conference this past weekend in Cape Cod and managed to grab a quick interview with Troy. Our guests should be quiet when, that's why it's not on. All right, very good. Hey, we always ask you to send us your junk, too, and some of you are listening. This is great. We got a bunch of Vlad the Impaler stuff. This is a little mug. Isn't it cool? From our good friend Diana Said, who sent us some stuff from some souvenirs from Romania. Thank you, Diana. We got books this week. We're getting all kinds of great stuff. Thanks you. We're going to keep decorating our set. You can see it right there with Sarah. Isn't that cool? There it is. It's getting crowded. So send us your junk. If you subscribe to our newsletter, which comes out once a week, just go to 30oddminutes.com, put in your email address. We'll let you know what's going on with the show. You can email us back your hate mail and all of the other stuff that you want to say. So, okay, tonight we are talking about children and the paranormal. We know that kids seem to be more sensitive to this stuff. Everything from imaginary friends to horrible nightmares that keep them awake at night to seeing things that we can't see. Our kids have these experiences, but it's a whole lot more. We're going to be talking about everything related to the subject of children and the paranormal, from poltergeists to imaginary friends to fairies and the stories we tell our kids. And we've got a great guest to do it. Thank goodness. Our guest tonight is the founder of Chicago Hauntings, one of the Windy City's most popular ghost tours. She's an historian, the author of the Chicago Ghost book series. She's been investigating the unexplained for 20 years and hasn't figured it out yet. Ha! We're working on it, though. She's written for children. She's a mom. And tonight she's here to talk about her latest book, There's Something Under the Bed, Children's Experiences with the Paranormal. You've seen her on A&E, the Learning Channel, the History Channel, PBS, and tonight she's all yours, my friendly oddballs. Please put your hands together for Ursula Bielski. Yay! How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, this is the big time. You've made it to cable access and internet streams that go down a lot.
I have. It's so thrilling.
Did you ever dream when you were a kid, like one day, 30-odd minutes, maybe?
No.
No, I know. Words can't describe how you feel right now. So, no, I get it. I get it every Tuesday night at 8.
You know, Jeff, I love you, and this is absolutely fantastic. You're the best.
Ah, thanks. Go on.
Yeah, no, you really are. You're absolutely the best. You're amazing. Everything you do is wonderful.
Draw it out. We got another 26 minutes to go.
So
Careful, we gotta get his head out of the studio.
Hey. So now you know how we screen our guests. It's how wonderful they think I am. The more wonderful you think I am, the more likely you are to get on. What a plan. All right. Enough about me. Let's talk about the foreword I wrote for your book, There's Something Under the Bed. Great foreword, isn't it?
the best foreword ever written for any book ever.
Oh my God, it's like you read exactly what I wrote ahead of time. All right, seriously, you're a mom, you've been doing the paranormal thing forever, you've written a book for kids, and now you've taken this whole experience and put it into There's Something Under the Bed. Is it scary? I mean, what inspires this to get started when you have kids to look into everything that can go wrong paranormally with your children?
Well, the book started really when I was a kid. I guess I decided to finally write the book because I saw my own kids having the same sorts of experiences that I had when I was growing up. Really, the first memory that I have was when I was 3 years old. I was awakened in my crib by the sound of someone walking up the staircase from the foyer to the second floor where the bedrooms were. And there was no one there. My parents had bought the house about 2 years before that, and it had been going on all that time. This is my first recollection of it. And it went on every night for probably 12 or 13 years. It was something that was always there. And I think from that very young age that I always had this kind of experience of life where I didn't really know what was acceptable to believe and what was not acceptable to believe, because we had this sort of alternate reality going on in our house. And so from that really young age, I began to look for other people that had those kinds of experiences. And you don't have to look far when you're looking. There were ghosts at my grandmother's house. There was her first child that had died in 1920 that we still heard crying in one of the bedrooms. Wow. There was my aunt's house, another block in the other direction, where the previous owner had hanged himself in the garage, and with the back door would open from the kitchen to the garage by itself. And when I listened to the stories that my family members told and their friends told, it always came around to the subject of the paranormal. And so I started hearing these stories at a very young age and started learning about Chicago history through these stories as well.
So what about your own
kids? It's really been a lifetime of learning.
So you said your own kids are having experiences too? I mean, what were they seeing that reminded you of your own childhood?
Yeah, and I know, Jeff, we've talked about this, with your daughter, and my daughter is having similar experiences, and it's really common. I mean, you're kind of hard-pressed to find someone that doesn't have the experience of when their child is a baby and seems to see things that aren't there, that we don't see, especially if they're very troubled, if they're crying a lot, and we can't seem to comfort them or settle them down. Every once in a while, they seem to see something kind of just above us that makes them smile, makes them laugh, and settles them down.
Right.
And when they start to be to the age where they talk, a lot of times they will say grandma or grandpa, or say a name that we're familiar with, one of our relatives who has passed away. And such a very, very common experience.
Yeah, no doubt. And so why do you think kids are more sensitive to the paranormal than adults?
Well, the research that I've done in working on There's Something Under the Bed, all the experts, as far as from psychology and from parapsychology, and people that do have paranormal abilities, especially mediums and clairvoyants, they all speak to the same thing, and everyone seems to agree that children don't necessarily have more experiences with the paranormal, but they do not block them out. Right. That we learn when we get older to block out experiences to really please the adults, because we garner that adults don't accept certain things as acceptable experiences. So seeing ghosts or, communicating with animals or elementals or maybe healing or psychokinesis, these things we really pick up at an early age that these are not acceptable experiences in our culture and acceptable abilities in our culture. And so whether willingly or unconsciously, we learn to block them out when we're very young. And so as we get older, we seem to have fewer of these experiences, but it really just may be that we're actually blocking them out.
Which is so interesting because, number one, the paranormal is more popular than ever before. So it's on TV, it's all around us, it permeates our culture and pop culture now. But even more than that, think of all the stories we tell our kids. We tell our kids about the Tooth Fairy, about Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, the Candy Witch at Halloween, the Great Pumpkin, you name it. There are so many legends that we instill in our kids. And the moral of the story is that these are real things. We believe in Santa Claus. We believe in the Easter Bunny and all these other things. So, given that, is it a mixed message we're sending our kids?
It absolutely is. That's pretty much the beginning of the book is about how all of these, sort of good things that we teach our children to believe, Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, like you said, they're all things that we want to use to teach our children good things, about life and giving and all this sort of thing. But every single one of these, creatures or characters that they teach our children about have paranormal abilities. And I don't know about you, but very distinctly when I was young, I remember, of course, we all wanted Santa Claus to come and bring us presents. We all wanted the Easter Bunny to come and bring us baskets with candy and everything else. But there was always more than a little element of fear, terror, because these were creatures that we didn't understand. They had the ability to come into our houses, without us knowing about it through paranormal means. Santa Claus, knew when we were sleeping, knew when we were awake, knew when we were bad or good.
Right.
And, as parents, these are comforting comforting characters that we introduce our children to. And then we tell them there's no such thing as ghosts. There's no such thing as, monsters. There's no such thing as fairies. There's no such thing as any of this stuff.
Right.
And so it's definitely a mixed message. So we're really instilling the basic thing is a sense of instability in them and a sense, that's going to lead them to choose the most comfortable path as they get older, because they're going to have to kind of comfort themselves, and they're going to take the low road and make themselves as comfortable as they can by just kind of getting rid of everything possible in the realm of possible.
Right. Okay, Ursula, we do have a question for you from our chat room. Sarah.
We do. So it's kind of like a little story that someone was asking about. So she has a coworker who is saying to her that her two kids are seeing things come in and out of the walls, and they've even drawn like little doors to symbolize where they're seeing these people coming in and out. They're also talking to their grandparents who have passed away many years ago. But what's bothering them is that there seems to be something maybe not so human, or they're just not sure what it is, and the little boy won't talk about it, but something's coming in and out of his wall that is scaring him, and they're just wondering if maybe you've heard of something like this happening, or if you have suggestions on what maybe they could do about it. They've tried erasing the doors to say, hey, they can't come through if there's no door, but that's not working. So. Yeah,
what do parents do when they've got a kid that seems to be communicating with grandparents, might be freaking a parent out, even drawing the door where these things are coming in and out of their house? Excuse me, that would be.
Yeah, it's difficult because as anyone that researches the paranormal knows, there are always areas where you don't know if there's something negative that's masquerading as something positive. You don't really know if our subconscious is trying to come through in some dark ways and try to harm us from within. And so it's difficult, but there are very sensible things that you can do, just like you would put your seatbelt on or something like that in a very practical situation. One of the things that people always talk about is reinforcing religious beliefs. And so, saying a prayer or just, giving thanks for the good things of the day at night, things like that. If you're from a Christian background, using holy water to just bless the children at night. A lot of people that are not from religious backgrounds will also just use water to sprinkle the children at night, believing that water breaks the bonds between spirits or entities and people that may not have a very positive connection.
Right.
So any water of any kind at bedtime, just sprinkled around the room, prayers, things
Sure.
like that. But the most basic thing is just teaching children to take to own their space and to be in charge of their situation. That seems to be the best thing of all, is to
Right.
just teach children that it's their space. And Jeff, I know you've heard this a million times, you go in somewhere where someone's bothered by a ghost in their house, the 99.9% foolproof remedy is for the person to say, go away, I don't
Yeah.
want you here.
Sure. I know one of the tricks.
And that works for kids as well as grown-ups.
Sure. One of the tricks we've used with my daughter is we've got spray with lavender in it, and we call it ghost spray. And what's nice is we can spray it around her room and she'll smell it. So it's not just hearing the mister, but it's also smelling the smell, and then so that's how she deals with it. But yeah, no, that's a great question. Let's talk a bit about fairies, because you covered this in your book, the Cottingley fairies, and we've actually got this photo. There it is. In 1922, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote The Coming of Fairies based on his involvement with these fairies. What's the story? What got the world captivated back in the 1920s with this photo?
This was such an interesting story, and it's hard for us to sort of conceive of this because we're so jaded now, especially because of all our technology and the way that we see things, and we can analyze photographs and everything else. But this was an incredible phenomenon. It impressed people like Arthur Conan Doyle, who popularized the photos and really published them and spread them around. These were two little girls in the village of Cottingley in England who used, it was a daughter, a girl and her cousin. And the girl had borrowed her father's camera, and they went out into the garden behind the house. And they took a bunch of pictures in the garden, and they captured what appeared to be fairies frolicking in the garden, and even a gnome in the garden. And one of the girls' mothers was interested in theosophy. Her son had died. And so she was interested in communication with the dead. And she gave the photographs to a well-known theosophist at the time. And they made their way to Arthur Conan Doyle, who believed that they were genuine. And Arthur Conan Doyle was a staunch spiritualist. He had lost not only his son, but several other family members in a short span of time. And like many, many well-known and well-respected minds of the generation, he was very, very interested in communication with the dead. And what most people don't realize is that at that time, spiritualism was considered a very scientific method. It used a lot of very up-to-date technologies like photography,
Right.
graphite pencils, the telegraph. It wasn't trying to be in this realm of the unknown. It was trying to prove things scientifically, much like we're trying to do in our generation with all the shows on TV now and all of our gadgets. It was very similar back then.
You're right. Now, but talk about this photo, though. Can we bring up the
Yeah.
first photo again? So this photo was thought to be that's the second one. Okay. So the first photo was, there it is. The first photo was eventually said to be a fraud, correct? I mean, if we look at those fairies, they are rather perfect.
Yes.
But the other photo in the series, which was the second one here, still up for debate?
Yes, there were 4 photographs that were taken before this final one that's on the screen now. And up until the day that she died, the little girl said that the 4 first photographs were frauds, that they had faked them with cardboard cutouts, but that they only faked them because there really were fairies in the garden, and they wanted to convince the adults of what they knew was true. And she said until the day that she died, when she was 80-something years old, that final photograph was genuine.
Right.
So she admitted to the fraudulence of the 4 previous photographs, but she maintained until her death that 5th photograph was genuine. And have examined the 5 photographs in the series have said that there's a distinct difference in the last photograph. So we'll probably never know, but it's a very interesting story.
And we do know that Peter Pan said, "I do believe in fairies. I do, I do." And that's how you make dead ones come back to life.
That's right.
It's true. But this is the stuff that permeates us. You know, we teach our kids about fairies. They're great in fairy tales. We want them to be real. That's certainly a part of this. But as we get older, as kids start to go through puberty, things start to happen. We hear about psychokinesis, the idea that our mind can actually move objects, make loud noises, bang in the walls, and things like that. And you talk extensively in your book about the case of Tina Resch, which is an amazing case. I think that's one of the most compelling stories ever. This photo went around back in the 1980s, the mid-1980s, of Tina Resch. There it is, the phone caught by a photojournalist shooting across her lap. And then the case was, of course, investigated by William Roll, who's kind of a legend in paranormal research as well. What drew you to this case? Tell us more about what was going on with Tina.
I've always been so interested in poltergeist cases. To me, it's one of the most, it seems to me that it's going to be the first sort of phenomenon that's verified by traditional or mainstream science, because there's so much physical activity that goes on. Tina Resch was a former foster child growing up in the 1980s in Columbus, Ohio. She was 14 years old when the activity began. She had trouble in school when she was enrolled by her foster family in the beginning. She had a lot of trouble adjusting. She was very fidgety, had a lot of anxiety. She at one point was tied up on the playground by her classmates and tormented to the point where she was taken out of school. And she spent the rest of her years with the family, just helping take care of the many other foster children that the family had. And William Roll, the great researcher into poltergeist activity, found out later on that Tina had a low-grade case of Tourette syndrome. And so that she had a very different sort of nervous system than other people had. And he really believed that this was connected to the activity that was going on in her house. Along with the famous flying phone photograph, the phone used to move around a lot on its own. And William Roll believed that was because Tina had a boyfriend that she was not allowed to have. And the only way she could communicate to him was over the phone. And he believed, as many mainstream physicists are starting to believe today, that inanimate objects are infused with energy when people touch them. And that sometimes if the person that's infused the object walks by it, that person will disrupt the energy field and cause phenomena to happen, things to fly around the room, break against the wall or whatever. In Tina's house, there were candlesticks on the walls that would rotate 180 degrees. There were, fake fruits and vegetables that would roll down the hallway. China would be upset. Pieces of furniture would move around. All sorts of activity. Eventually, Tina was found to be faking some of the activity, which is common in almost all of the cases that have been documented of poltergeist activity. Either the time comes when the activity ceases and the agent, usually an adolescent, will start to fake activity to keep the attention going.
Right.
Unfortunately, skeptics take that opportunity to say that the whole thing was fake.
And that's one of the problems we run into again and again in paranormal research, where someone finds something legitimate that brings them some acclaim, and same thing. All of a sudden you find these people faking stuff. And I get it. I mean, as a built-in skeptic myself, you have to say, if you'll fake one thing, would you have faked all of it? In the case of kids, I think it is a little bit different, like you said, where it's this attention they were getting, and maybe they were lacking that attention in the first place. And any kind of attention is good attention when you're a kid, whether it's positive or negative. But so what became of Tina after all this?
The case of Tina was so notable and so tragic because she ended up leaving her home when she was 17 years old. Her foster parents, or adoptive parents at that point, who had adopted her when she was really a baby, told her that she had to leave the house. And it's been written that a lot of that had to do with the untoward attention that the case brought to the family. They were very Christian, sort of fundamentalist Christian family, and a lot of that attention, they believe, came to their family through the case. So they told Tina that she had to leave. So it was up to her to either go into a group home, again, with, foster care, or to marry the boyfriend she had at the time. So she ran away from home. She said she was getting married. She didn't get married, and she had a series of relationships and ended up in a bad marriage. She had a little girl named Amber who ended up being killed. And the circumstances still today are very vague. It was discovered that the little girl had been sodomized. She was just 2 years old.
Oh, God.
And Tina pled guilty to the murder, even though her boyfriend admitted that he had abused her, and it was found that he had sexually abused the child. Tina admitted to it, and she's in jail right now.
Wow.
She's been in jail all of these years. And William Roll and many other experts believe that she pled guilty to it because she was taught through her experiences with the poltergeist activity that no one would believe what she said.
Right.
And so that she came to believe that she was guilty for everything that happened in her life, and that no one would believe her if she claimed that she was innocent. So sometimes this activity can have really incredible consequences, and it comes many times from very dire circumstances, as in Tina's case. A lot of times there's abuse, emotional conflict that leads to this activity happening first of all.
Right.
And the consequences of the unresolved issue and the questioning about it and the accusations of fraud, they're some of the most tragic circumstances in the research that we do.
All right, we only have a couple minutes left here, but I do want to talk about exorcism and the idea of demons, which is so hot right now. Hollywood movies, demonologists, TV shows. But what's involved when you talk about kids and exorcism? Are they more susceptible than adults?
There's different circumstances. Just like anything else, children are more believing, more gullible. They're more open to things, just as they're more open to seeing nice ghosts, grandma and grandpa, and
Right.
maybe talking to the dog and, seeing if the dog needs some food or water. They're also more open to not so benign influences, from wherever they're coming from. And, we still don't really know whether infestations or possessions, as different people call them, if they are coming from an exterior source, if they're truly demons or, other entities, or if they're forces that are coming from our own subconscious. But whatever they are, it seems that children do not have the spiritual or the emotional resources to combat them naturally or to kind of keep them in check. And so, it can have lots of terrible things that happen. Of course, the most, famous case is the case of the exorcist story, Little Riley Doe, out on the East Coast.
Right.
And but that happens in lesser varieties in many different circumstances. And yeah, it's always a hot topic.
Yep, it certainly is. Ursula, there is indeed something under the bed. Thank you for joining us tonight. Till next time,
Thank you
folks.
for
Stay
having me.
on.